What if everything you thought you knew about the Browns was a lie? Secrets buried for decades are finally coming to light, and one confession could shatter this family forever. Meri walks into the room, trembling, holding the truth that no one expected, and what she reveals will leave every wife questioning loyalty, love, and the life they built. Tonight, nothing stays hidden and no one walks away unchanged. The sun had barely touched the horizon, painting the desert sky in streaks of gold and crimson, but inside the sprawling brown residence, tension had already begun to thicken the air. Christine moved through the house like a storm contained, each step deliberate, eyes darting, heart hammering against the walls of a secret she could no longer keep. Rumors had been swirling for months, whispers carried by friends, hushed conversations caught in corners of the house. But tonight, the truth would no longer hide behind polite smiles and polite nods. Kody poured himself a cup of coffee in the kitchen, oblivious to the storm brewing just a few feet away. Meri was still lingering near the counter, scrolling through her phone as if she didn't feel the electric charge radiating from Christine's every movement. Janelle had stopped at the edge of the living room, her face a mixture of curiosity and dread in anticipation of what would surely set them off. The calm before the storm was suffocating. Every tick of the clock increased the weight of the moment. Christine finally spoke, her voice low, almost trembling, yet sharp enough to cut through the silent tension. "We need to talk. All of us." Her words were simple, but they carried the force of a hammer striking glass. Every eye turned toward her. Kody's expression shifted subtly, first surprise, then an instinctive tightening of his jaw. Meri looked up, suspicion already flaring behind her eyes. Janelle leaned forward slightly, sensing that the ground beneath their carefully curated lives was about to crack. The first revelation came like a jagged lightning strike. Christine reveals details of her secret interactions, moments that Kody had never known, choices she had made alone, decisions that had started to unravel the very foundation of the family without anyone realizing it. Each sentence hung in the air, heavy with the unspoken consequences that followed. The wives exchanged glances, each reaction more telling than words could convey. Shock, hurt, disbelief, and in some corners a flicker of anger. And Christine laid it all bare, the affair, the hidden messages, the late-night meetings that had cast shadows over her usually sunny disposition. Kody's face betrayed a crack in that rare, composed exterior. This wasn't a disagreement over household chores or schedule conflicts. This was a revelation that threatened to rewrite the story of their family entirely. Felt like the room became smaller in some ways, every corner a reminder of secrets and the fear of what was to come. Tension pressed against every shoulder, every breath felt heavier than the last. The wives were masters of poise, yet hardly contained the storm that had brewed within them. Christine, for her part, was a mix of courage and vulnerability, as this exposure freed as much as terrified her. And just when it seemed like the confession had reached its peak, a small, overlooked detail came forward, a message, a photograph, a receipt that suggested this was far from over. This revelation wasn't a single wave. It was the first ripple in a series of tidal waves poised to crash over the Browns. No one could look away, no one could act as though it did not exist. There was the ultimate confrontation waiting, and decisions made in this room would reverberate far beyond its walls. The air was dense, almost choking, as if the house itself held in a breath of anticipation. Meri's heels clicked sharply against the polished floors, every step like a drumbeat of impending chaos. She had heard whispers, fragments of Christine's revelation before she even came. But nothing could have prepared her for the raw truth lying in wait inside. She came into the living room unannounced, her presence electric. Kody looked up, startled, caught between surprise and unease. "Meri," he started, but his voice faltered. There was no greeting here, no politeness about small talk. The usual facade of calm and control had shattered, replaced by something far more volatile. Meri's eyes scanned the room. Christine stood tall and straight, her head thrown back in defiance. Janelle was guarded, tense, ready to absorb the fallout, yet not willing to step directly into it. And then there was Kody, who tried composure but was failing, his body language betraying the panic simmering just below the surface. I need answers, Meri said, her voice steady but sharp, slicing through the lingering tension. Her words carried a weight that made everyone pause. Christine shifted slightly but didn't flinch. She had expected this. This confrontation had been building up, and yet its intensity was surprising. Boldly, Meri continued to reveal the fragments she had been able to uncover for herself. Texts, snippets of conversations, timing inconsistencies that didn't add up. Each one was like a match thrown into dry kindling. The room seemed to ignite with every revelation. Kody's jaw tightened, his fingers brushing against the edge of the table, as if grasping for some invisible anchor. Christine did not back down. She met Meri's glare with calm precision, her truth unwavering. Each word was considered, every sentence a deliberate building so that there would be no room for misunderstanding. Yet, in her bravery, there was even a quiver recognition that telling the truth would alter everything, forever. Meri's voice rose slightly, her emotions bubbling beneath the surface. Anger, betrayal, and disbelief fought for dominance. How long? She demanded. How long have you been hiding this? Her tone wasn't just questioning, it was an accusation that reverberated in the room. The other wives listened to every word, hanging in the delicate silence of a moment of truth. Tensions mounted with every word as Christine revealed more than her own actions, details of how Kody had contributed to the secrecy, whether knowingly or not. With each, another chip fell off the veneer of stability to which the family had clung for so long. Past, that carefully constructed reality of their lives now seemed fragile, transparent, and dangerously incomplete. A bold truth hung in the air. It wasn't just about Christine's secret. It was about the fissures in Kody's control, the breaks in the trust, and the undeniable fact that life would never be the same. Each look from the wives to each other spoke silently of questions, accusations, and gnawing fear about what may happen next. Then, as if the universe had timed it perfectly, a new detail emerged, one that no one could have foreseen. A photograph, a message, something hidden yet impossible to ignore. Contents promising way more chaos and another layer of betrayal waiting to unfold. The room felt like a pressure cooker on the verge of exploding. Every heart was racing, every breath was shallow, and yet no one was able to look away. Meri's outburst served as the spark that touched off a chain reaction. Its repercussions were only now beginning to ripple through the Brown family. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was loaded, a ticking clock down toward the moment when the next secret would erupt. And all knew, once this truth fully came out, there was no turning back. The room felt heavier now, as though every secret whispered had manifested into a tangible weight pressing down on them all. Kody sat slumped in the corner, his usual air of control stripped away, replaced by an edgy energy he couldn't mask. His eyes danced between Meri and Christine, unsure where to place his loyalty or how to defend the truths he'd so hard tried to bury. Meri paced the room, a storm contained in human form. Every word she spoke hit the fragile walls of the family's illusions with the force of a hammer. You can't just hide things and expect everything to be fine, she said, voice trembling and yet cutting. We've lived in a lie and it stops now. Christine was calm, but a flicker of doubt crossed her gaze. No longer was the face-off about her. Every revelation she had laid bare was now bouncing back, reflecting the deeper fractures in the family. Janelle, the peacemaker, retreated into herself silent and absorbed, her mind running with questions she wasn't ready to ask. Boldly, Meri revealed the final piece of her evidence, a series of carefully timed messages that tied Kody to decisions and manipulations that no one had fully understood before. The evidence was undeniable. Every face in the room betrayed shock, disbelief, and a creeping sense of betrayal. Kody swallowed hard, a bead of sweat forming on his temple. This changes everything, he muttered, almost to himself. His voice was low, defeated, a man realizing his empire of control was crumbling brick by brick. The wives exchanged glances, each silently processing the weight of the truth. Christine's words cut deeper than any accusation could. She reminded them of moments long buried, choices that had been made in the shadows, and the consequences that were finally emerging. Each revelation was a mirror, reflecting not just her secrets but also the cracks in Kody's leadership and the silent resentments grown over years. And in Meri's eyes, some softening occurred, not of forgiveness but of clarity. "We all need to face this," she said. "No more pretending, no more silence. It's too late for half-truths." An almost palpable determination laced her voice, a force that demanded reckoning. The room grew quiet as the dominoes of emotion fell. Finally, Janelle spoke, her voice hesitant but firm. I don't know who we are anymore," she admitted, starkly vulnerable against the tension. Her words reflected the shared uncertainty that had taken hold. The foundation they had relied on for decades was cracking, and each wife felt the tremor differently. Bold tension filled the space as unspoken questions hung between them. What did this portend for the future of the family? How far did the betrayal go, and could trust ever be rebuilt? Every heartbeat seemed to answer it. All had changed, and there was no going back. It was then that a notification chimed on Kody's phone, breaking the fragile calm. The message was brief, yet explosive, a new layer of the story waiting to surface, something that would force the family to confront truths they hadn't even imagined. The camera rested on a face, capturing raw emotion in all forms: shock, anger, sorrow, the light touch of determination. The fallout had only just begun, and the ripples would reach far beyond this room. Secrets once hidden were now out in the open, and every decision made from here on would hold the weight of truth. The emotional dynamics within the Brown family were forever changed, and each wife was now standing at a personal crossroads: fight, forgive, or flee. As the scene fades, the audience is left with a chilling realization. The confrontation was only the beginning. The real storm, the one that would test every relationship, bond, and unspoken rule, was yet to come. In that storm, no one would emerge untouched. Tension in the room was suffocating, like the air had thickened with the weight of unspoken truths. Kody tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Every glance from Meri, Christine, and Janelle pierced him, each a silent accusation, each a reminder of the trust he had shattered. Meri's eyes blazed with a mixture of anger and determination. Stepping forward, she held in her hands a folder of documents that she had discovered in the days leading up to this confrontation. "I've seen it all, Kody," she said, her tone low but steady. "The lies, the manipulations, the things you thought we'd never find out." Christine sighed quietly beside her. It wasn't exhaustion. It was the tension of knowing that secrets she had carried were no longer hers alone but part of the family, part of the public, and part of an unstoppable reckoning. Boldly, Meri laid the first document on the table, a record of decisions, hidden communications, and financial irregularities that no one outside of Kody's inner circle had ever seen. The wives leaned in, their expressions shifting from disbelief to horror. Normally composed and rational, Janelle allowed a shiver to pass through her as she read the damning details. "You see, Kody," Meri continued, her voice unrelenting, "these aren't just mistakes. They're patterns. Patterns showing exactly who's pulling the strings and who's kept in the dark." It was as if she had used a scalpel to slice the room open and expose the fragile sense of family unity that had held for decades. Kody's defenses were crumbling. He opened his mouth to respond, but Christine interjected, her voice sharp and unflinching. "No explanations, Kody. We've heard enough lies. We need truth, every detail, every hidden choice, every moment we were kept in the dark." The wives exchanged a brief, weighted look, each alone with her own view of the betrayal. Janelle was usually the peacemaker, but today she faced the anger she had laid to rest for so many years. Her fists clenched, her nails digging deep into her palms as realization dawned. This wasn't about one secret anymore. This was about decades of deception and fragile threads that were snapping. The room was filled with bold tension as Kody finally spoke, his voice cracking under pressure. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought I was protecting everyone." His explanation fell flat, swallowed by the weight of the proof and the intensity of the wives' gazes. The damage had been done. Suddenly, Kody's phone pinged a second time a notification, another revelation to be found. Cameras zoomed in to capture each flicker of hesitation, fear, and realization that the battle was far from over. It was an electric room filled with anticipation, with hearts pounding from the knowledge that just one more revelation could break them completely. Christine took another step closer to him, her gaze fully fixed on Kody. "This isn't just about us anymore," she said, voice calm but cutting. "It's about the life we've all been living, the life you've been controlling. And it ends tonight." Meri's voice rang out, final and unwavering. "We deserve the truth, Kody. And we're not walking away until we have it." The wives' collective resolve hung in the air like a storm about to break. Every secret uncovered, every lie exposed shifted a delicate balance of power. Loyalties were called into question, trust was in tatters, and the family which once seemed unbreakable now teetered on the edge of collapse. The storm wasn't coming, it was already here. And as the scene faded, the audience could feel the tremors of betrayal, anger, and heartbreak that would ripple through every corner of the Brown family's world. The confrontation had escalated, and the fallout was about to become unavoidable. The tension didn't dissipate as the room fell silent, the only thing heard being the faint hum of the air conditioner. The weight of the confrontation pressed upon all in the room, leaving little room for denial. Kody didn't have any of his trademark calm, but in its place was a rare vulnerability, a crack in the armor he had built over decades. Christine's face contorted in anger and pain as she took a step backwards, her chest heaving. She could feel the anger coiling inside her, twisting every thought. The betrayals weren't just words, but lived experiences, years of manipulative secrets that had left her questioning all that she knew about her family and herself. Meri sat at the edge of the sofa, her gaze fixed on the floor. Her hand shook a little, clutching her phone closely, the device holding even more proof of Kody's decisions, messages, and hidden actions. Each revelation felt like a knife twisting slowly in her heart, cutting through memories she had cherished, trust she had invested, and hope she had held on to. Janelle stood erect, her face pale with pent-up emotion. Her anger was not of the shouting type, and it seeped from every motion, every look she had for Kody. The air in that room seemed to shrink as collective disappointment, frustration, and incredulity formed a tight vice. Boldly, Christine broke the silence. "Do you even realize what you've done, Kody?" Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to keep control. "Do you know how deep this goes? How much it hurts to realize that the person you trusted the most was hiding everything from you?" Kody's eyes darted between the three women, his every line etched with guilt. I didn't want it to hurt anyone," he whispered, his voice barely audible. But the words held no power of repair. They hung there, fragile and ineffective, like a bridge that had already collapsed. The camera lingered on the wives' reactions, capturing every flicker of emotion. Meri's jaw tightened. Christine's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Janelle's fingers flexed in a silent struggle to hold the storm brewing inside her. It was as if the audience could almost feel the electric charge in the room, the simmering tension that refused to dissipate. A sudden noise, Kody's phone vibrating again, broke the moment. Another message, another secret waiting to explode. The wives exchanged a glance. In an instant, they knew this was far from over. It was only the tip of the iceberg with what they had uncovered thus far. Boldly, Meri stood, her voice firm and unwavering. "We've spent too long pretending this is okay. Too long pretending the family we see on camera is the reality we live." She held up the documents. "This is the truth. And we need to face it together or it will destroy us all." Christine nodded, feeling a sense of solidarity with her sisters, even as anger surged through her veins. Janelle exhaled slowly, letting go of a shuddering breath she hadn't realized she had been holding. Each of them knew that bringing down Kody wasn't only about revealing secrets but about reclaiming their voices, their autonomy, and their lives. Gone was the silent tension in the room, it now pulsed with determination. They weren't victims of betrayal anymore. They were women standing together to confront the fallout, demand accountability, and redefine what family meant on their terms. And yet, the questions wouldn't go away. How far-reaching was Kody's deceit, and what other truths remained hidden, ready to shatter them once and for all? That scene faded with a sense of anticipation, leaving the audience on edge, hearts racing, desperate to see how the shattered bonds would be navigated in the episodes to come. The emotional storm had begun, and there was no turning back. The storm inside the Brown household wasn't contained within their living room walls. Outside, the world waited. It waited in the form of TLC cameras, social media chatter, and avid fans who wanted answers. What happened behind the now broken doors was about to collide with the public eye, and quite literally, no one knew how that was going to go. Christine began to pace, her mind racing with thoughts she could hardly say out loud. Every word exchanged with Kody, every accusation thrown, was louder now in the echo chamber of reality TV scrutiny. And she knew that once this reached the cameras, the story would take on a life of its own, twisting and reshaping in ways they couldn't control. Boldly, she stopped and turned toward Meri and Janelle. This isn't just about us anymore. People will see it, judge it, and we have to be ready. But we can't let them define our truth. Her voice carried both fear and defiance, a fragile mix that somehow made her stronger. Meri, still clutching the evidence in her hands, felt the weight of responsibility settle heavy upon her shoulders. Every hidden message, every secret meeting, every omission Kody had orchestrated represented not just betrayal but also a potential scandal that could engulf them all. They think they know our family, she muttered, but they haven't seen the half of it. Janelle's calm exterior was cracking. Her hands fidgeted with the edge of a throw pillow, a small tremor in her hands betraying the anxiety that had been simmering under her composed exterior. We've always been portrayed as this perfect plural family, she said in a voice low but cutting. But perfection is just a mask. And now it's about to shatter in front of everyone. Kody sat quietly, the gravity of the situation finally reaching him, and a sense of helplessness began to creep in. He had built his life on a foundation of secrecy, controlling the narrative through omissions and polished appearances. Now every hidden choice was about to see daylight, and no excuse could shield him from the consequences. The camera's lens caught every subtle glance, every flicker of doubt, every clenched jaw. For the audience, this was palpably tense. What had been a personal conflict was now a public reckoning, one that would likely redefine the Brown family forever. Boldly, Christine stepped closer to Kody, her voice steady despite the storm that raged within her. This isn't about forgiveness or understanding anymore. It's about accountability. And if we don't demand it now, the world will, whether we're ready or not. Outside, notifications buzzed incessantly, phones chiming in with fan theories, gossip, and speculation. Social media was abuzz with comments. Who knew? How could this happen? Could Kody really have hidden all of this? The narrative was no longer theirs alone. It belonged to everyone watching. The wives exchanged a weighted glance. They all knew this was only the first battle, as they would have to face him in private. The next challenge was to take on the court of public opinion, where perception often mattered more than reality. Boldly, Janelle broke the heavy silence. We have to be strategic. We can't let them spin this story for us. We need to be the ones telling it, our way, our truth. Camera fixed on the three women, their resolve hardened with every second that passed. They were no longer wives facing betrayal but witnesses, advocates, and warriors for the truth. And with the whole world as their witness, the stakes had never been higher. And yet, even as they braced for the storm outside, one chilling thought lingered: how much more was still hidden, waiting to explode, and who would survive the fallout when it did? The tension inside the Brown household had reached a fever pitch. Every heartbeat felt loud, echoing off the walls like a warning drum. Christine, Meri, and Janelle stood in the center of the room, a triangle of emotions, anger, betrayal, and heartbreak all colliding. Kody, seated on the edge of the couch, looked smaller than ever, his usual composure stripped away by the weight of his own secrets. Christine's eyes blazed as she pointed to Kody. You can't hide behind excuses anymore. Every lie, every manipulation, it all ends here. Her voice was as sharp as a knife, cutting through the suffocating tension. We've been patient, but patience has a limit, Kody, and you've pushed it too far. Meri, shaking but firm, held up the document she had put together. I have been silent for too long. But these receipts, these hidden messages, they are proof. Proof that you have controlled the narrative, lied to us, and betrayed the trust we gave you. It stops now. Her hand shook, but her words rang with undeniable authority. The usually conciliatory Janelle could no longer contain her frustration. We've bent over backward to protect the family image, to keep the peace. But you don't get to dictate what's right and what's hidden anymore. The truth is here, whether you like it or not. Kody's face went pale. He opened his mouth, but no words came out, only the stifled sound of a man cornered by his own actions. The room felt heavy, suffocating, as their wives' words echoed, exposing the fractures in a marriage that long had been built on secrecy. Boldly, Christine stepped closer, her voice dropping to a controlled, cutting whisper. You've had your chance to fix this. Now we decide what happens next. Do we let this destroy us completely, or do we finally confront the truth and take back our lives? The deafening silence that followed spoke volumes. It was more than just the absence of any sound. It was the weight of the choices, the tension of consequences, the fear of what was yet to come. Each of them in that room felt it differently. Christine with righteous anger, Meri with vindication and sorrow, Janelle frustration and fear, Kody guilt and panic. Then, like a spark in dry tinder, the emotional dam burst. Christine's hand shook as she flung the folder of evidence onto the table. I can't do this anymore. I can't live in a house where lies rule the day. This family deserves honesty. Her voice cracked, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath the anger. Meri stepped forward now, tears streaming down her face. We have been ignored and overlooked, silenced for far too long. Not anymore, though. You've forced our hand, Kody. The world will see whether you want them to or not. Janelle's voice was steady, yet quavering, as she issued a last warning. It's not punishment, but survival. Survival of the heart, mind, and dignity. And you have to come to grips with the fact that the consequences of your actions are real and unavoidable. Kody finally spoke, his voice barely audible, broken by shame. I never meant for it to get this far, but his words fell flat, drowned out by the undeniable storm of truth in the room. Boldly, Christine, Meri, and Janelle exchanged glances. A silent pact formed. They had stepped across the line from patience to action, from hidden truths to exposed realities. The emotional breaking point had been reached, and there was no turning back. And then, just as things couldn't get any worse, the unexpected happened. An old message coming out of left field, and one that would shake the Brown family even further than it already had, begging the question, what else was still buried? The room went from tense to chaotic. The air was thick with unspoken truths, shattered trusts, and questions of what comes next. Kody sat slumped in the corner, weighed down physically by his secrets. Christine, Meri, and Janelle were whirlwinds of emotion, their faces red with anger, betrayal, and determination. Christine stepped forward, her voice even but razor-sharp, carrying finality with it. This is over tonight, Kody. No more lies. No more secret hideaways. We are done being quietly destroyed. You need to face what you have done. Her hand shook slightly, but her eyes were steel, the fury of years of deception finally unleashed. She held up her phone, displaying messages, photos, and voice notes she had discovered, evidence that couldn't be ignored. We found everything. The receipts, the footage, the secret conversations. It's all here. We can't pretend anymore. Her voice cracked, raw and unfiltered, as the depth of hurt she had silently carried finally came out. Calm, collected Janelle couldn't help it. We've protected this family for too long, Kody. We have bent over backward to maintain appearances, and what did we get? Lies. Manipulation. A family built on smoke and mirrors. She shook her head, and the frustration and the sorrow swirled into an overwhelming force in the room. Kody's hand shook as he reached for his head, muttering under his breath. I never wanted. I thought I was doing the right thing. But the words fell flat, swallowed by the avalanche of truth crashing down around him. There were no excuses left, no defenses strong enough to hold back the tide of revelation. Boldly, Christine went closer, putting the folder containing damning evidence on the table. We have given you chance after chance, Kody. But your choices have consequences. This is no longer just about us. This is about exposing the truth, protecting our dignity, and taking back our lives from the shadows you have created. Then the phone buzzed, just another notification, another secret revealed. All three women leaned in, eyes widening as another message from years ago appeared. A recording of Kody discussing plans that could shatter the family even further. Shock rippled through the room. The revelation was much bigger than any of them had anticipated. Meri whispered, almost to herself, "How deep does this go? What else is hidden?" The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of uncertainty settling over them like a storm cloud. Even Kody's expression turned from fear to sheer panic. Janelle's voice cut through the tension, firm and commanding. "It is time for accountability. No more shadows, no more silence. The family will never be the same, but maybe, just maybe, this is the start of something real, something honest." Christine's eyes rolled around the room, her determination unyielding. "We cannot change the past, but we can choose what happens from now on. We won't be victims of one lie after another. The truth is ours for a change, and it will be seen whatever the cost." Tension in the room is palpable as the camera cuts to a wide shot, the women in solidarity, unified with an air of strength and resolution. Kody sits alone, final realization dawning on him. The legacy of deceit and betrayal that looms over their family threatens to dismantle it all, leaving the audience with one burning question. What other secrets are buried in the shadows of the Brown family, waiting to be exposed next? The screen blacks out, leaving audiences with bated breath, hearts pounding, and minds filled with expectation. The emotional storm has passed, but the fallout and the fight for truth is far from over. Boldly, for those watching, the last thought lingers. Who will rise from the ashes of deceit, and who will be consumed by the weight of truths hidden? Those answers are coming, and no one will be prepared.